What are these cryptic skin tones that you speak of? Let's find out. One of the best things to determine in choosing colors is look at your portrait or the creative vision that you have and determine whether your portrait is going to have skin tones that have warm undertones or cool undertones. And then you can kind of go from there. If you are unsure about this, think of it in terms of yellow or blue. And I'll show you an example as to what I mean. So here's an example. The woman has cool undertones on the left thanks to the lighting and warm undertones on the right, which kind of have a yellow cast to them. And that'll determine which colored shades you would be using if you were to use this as a reference. You've got siennas, which are usually raw sienna or burnt sienna, which can range in warm to cool shades, and they work for midtones and they work for darker shadows on lighter skinned people. You've got umbers, which make for darker skin tones and darker shadows. If anyone ever wants to do a portrait of me, this is your entire spectrum that you're going to need, because I'm a pale Irish girl and this is about it. But seriously, highlights are going to range in creams to ivories to light flesh depending on the nationality of the person or the creative vision that you have. So you've got things that range from cream to ivory to just basically on the verge of being completely white. Prismacolor has colors like cream, raw umber, burnt ochre, which is kind of like a burnt sienna, and burnt umber. And although these are vintage Prismacolors, it's still pretty much the same spectrum on the Sanford. Holbein, which are from Japan, have colors like ivory, flesh, raw umber, burnt sienna, burnt umber, and sepia, but they also have a plethora of other colors that you can use for skin tones. Unfortunately, right now they're not available in the US, but you can special order them from Amazon. And, you know, they're well worth it. They do layer very well, and you can work with them fairly easily. So, Caran D Ache Pablo, they probably have the least amount of traditional portrait colors. I'm not going to say that they don't have skin tones because that's not necessarily true. Not everybody has the same kind of skin tone. So as far as traditional colors go, they do have umber. They do have, what is this? Brown. They have hazel, which is kind of an untraditional color, which I like. And they have brown ochre. They have umber. You know, they do have an ivory. I don't know where it went though. So you'll be able to see those on the swatches. So Faber-Castell's Polychromos probably have the most options whenever it comes to traditional skin tones in portraits. You've got ivory, burnt ochre, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, raw sienna, umber. But I also like to use the two towards the bottom that are called cinnamon and sanguine for traditional portrait colors. And as of right now, this is the only collection that I can find that has light, medium, and dark flesh tones, which you'll see it on the swatches. The dark flesh is not really so much a dark flesh as it is a pink, but that actually is quite a bit of amazing skin tones for the 120 collection. And so those are some of your options, and I do highly recommend the Polychromos.
Look at how pretty they are. So pretty. They're so pretty.
These are the lovely swatches of highlights. We've got everything from Erogentin Eggshell, which is probably one of the brightest colors, along with the Pablo Cream, down to Prismacolor's Flesh, which I've always thought is not necessarily a flesh tone as it is a peach. And I've got those on the other white paper. And as you can see, underneath this black paper, it really shows you the undertones, which ones have warm undertones, which are cooler, which are kind of neutral. You've got Light Flesh by Polychromos, which is more of a pink, and the Holbein Flesh is more of a yellow. So you can determine which ones will work for you in your portrait. So outside of these midtones, we've got other midtone options. Don't be afraid to get crazy and look for other shades that aren't traditional shades outside of the burnt siennas and the raw umbers and all that good stuff. Here are the raw umber comparisons with Polychromos. You've kind of got a warmer umber. Holbein, definitely a cooler shade. And Prismacolor, I'd probably say that's somewhere in between. It's more warm than it is cool, in my opinion. So here are the Polychromos light, medium, and dark flesh, as I mentioned before. Dark flesh doesn't really seem to be a dark fleshy tone. It's more of a muted pink to me. At least in my ideal, I really don't feel like that's a correct representation of dark flesh, quote unquote. So this is Prismacolor's flesh tone. A little bit more peachy than I personally use, but it may work for you. Very nice and warm shade. Polychromos Cinnamon is one of my favorites, but it's interesting that the Erogeton Cinnamon and Polychromos Cinnamon are two different undertones and two different values. So this is available for download. For darker shades of flesh and for darker shadows, I provided a comparison of the burnt umbers because I love you. And as you can see, the burnt umbers kind of vary in value and in undertone. Holbein Artists, more of a warm undertone. Pablo's Umber, definitely a cooler shade. Prismacolor's more of a warm shade, and Polychromos, cool. So there you go. I mean, burnt umbers, they just don't play by the rules, and you gotta love that because artists shouldn't play by the rules. And so then you've got chocolate. That's another option too. Derwent's is much more of an umber than the Holbein chocolate. Other options that I've given you here: Pablo Brown, Polychromos Indian Red, Polychromos Caput Mortem. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not, and I don't really care. Holbein Cocoa is a nice, warm, mid-shade shadow tone. And I've got sepias here for you. Is it sepia or sepia? I don't know. I've always kind of called it sepia up until about a month ago. I'm not really sure why. So Holbein is definitely more of a darker, cooler sepia. And you've got the Derwent sepia, which is a red undertone. And that's a nice warm shadow, isn't it? So here are your options for darker skin tones and darker shades. I hope that really helps you out. And you can download these. You can print them. You can save them to your mobile phone. You can share them with friends. You can use them for portraits. You can use them for your bathroom. I don't know, to frame. I'm being stupid now. So anyways, I hope you like that. Someone's had too much caffeine. Also, don't be afraid to go outside the norm and try new things. I've used everything from indigo for shadows and light magenta for highlights. So don't be afraid to do that. Also remember that even though no portrait is created equal and they're all different, everyone's soul is the same and everyone is created equal. I'm having a Bob Ross moment. Quick tip, just to remember there are shadows within shadows and dark highlights within light highlights. There's a spectrum of color there, not just light, medium, and dark. Certainly hope this has been informative for you and useful and as simple as I could possibly make it. Next time I'll just do a demonstration as well, but right now I just don't really have the time and I just wanted to answer your questions. So go ahead and ask me any more questions that you may have. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and comment, and I will see you later. Have a great day. Have a great time arting it up.